Like the first year we had it up here, actually I should do that. I could physically feel the difference sitting in the tractor between the treated and the untreated side when it came to sowing. Like we sprayed it out in February. We're sowing in, it was about the middle of May, early May. And to go from one side of the paddock where it was treated to the other, you could just feel the difference. Like in the tractor was just working that bit harder where it was untreated. That paddock that's down on my parents' place, that I treated last year, when I came back to it this year, after we had that opening rain in April, I was looking at it probably about 4 or 5 days after the rain, and you could, it was like driving past the line in the paddock. The untreated side, the top of the ground had dried off, and the treated side, the ground was wet right to the top still, like it was as though it was, I don't know how you describe it, as though you'd had another rain on the other side of the paddock. It kept the moisture right to the surface. It's great to use. Like hasn't like I said, hasn't had any trouble with mixing, or it just hasn't blocked any nozzles or filters or all. So yeah, just smells a bit when you open the can. If you think about it, it's probably saved us on other areas. Like I haven't had to use any insecticide on the canola yet. So you know, although insecticide's not a huge expense, it's still a time and a thing to do it, and you still got to buy it. So we had insects in the canola last spring, and on the treated patches there were still insects there, which were, you know, probably the big as the back of that ute in the treated side. But in the untreated side, they were probably, you know, areas as large as that header. Like they were still there, but it was just containing them. Now this was all treated the same otherwise. But this side came up, but this canola seed actually had an insecticide on it, and that was on the other side of the far side of the paddock. And I'd driven into this a couple of times, thinking that it's fine, because it was still planting wheat and barley and that. And after sowing, I came back and drove right across the paddock and found that the insects had basically wiped that side of the paddock out and left the treated side.
So it doesn't seem like much of a difference to me.
Want to put your glasses back on? You know, I'm prepared to tolerate a few insects, knowing that the plants are stronger and can push them off. Whereas before, you think as soon as you find insects, you say, well, you know, they've got to go because you know they're going to wreck the crop. Whereas we know now that the best is helping the plants to will tolerate them, or the insects can't tolerate the high sugar in the best treated plants. So every paddock, there's definite yield increases. Like with the yield of the auto steer in the header, you could sit there and just visually watch the numbers on the yield monitor, and there was always yielding more where the best was than where it was untreated.
Any exceptions to that?
I'd say no.
Every time it was best, you were getting better yield.
Mm-hmm. Some of the canola did really well where it was treated, and even some of the wheat was probably, you know, in some places the canola was doing 30% better than where it was untreated. I was talking to Barry a couple of weeks ago, and I said to him, because I just put the sheep on the wheat then, and I said they went in there and because they were reasonably hungry when they went in there, given that we'd had not a lot of sheep feed for them, and they seemed to go in there and just eat for a while, and then they just lay down and I've just taken them off again in the last few days, and then we're not getting the dirtiness, the dags and that on them that we have been. Yeah, well, I treated a paddock of lucerne it'll be almost 12 months ago now, and when we put our lambs on it last year, they were doing very well, and you know, I got the agent to come out and have a look at them, thinking, you know, they're probably getting big enough to sell, and he looked at them and he said, yeah, they'll be right. So he came out, he said, I will sell them in you know, a week or so's time, and he came out and helped me draft them and that, and he said, oh, well, you know, these are the best lambs that have ever come off this place. And we took them to the market, and they were about $15 a head dearer than anything else in the market that day. So, and they hadn't had anything done different than we've done probably for the last 5 or 8 years, sort of thing. So
Just the best product is the only difference.
the best was put on the paddock. So I just hope we get enough rain to get a good season, and so we've got enough cash in the bank, and I can basically treat the whole farm with best, so that I've got enough confidence in the product that it's doing its job, and it's which will reduce. It's going to reduce our other costs in the long term.